The bereaved millionaire's twin daughters hadn't been getting any rest whatsoever until their new African-American caregiver implemented changes that transformed the situation entirely. That caregiver is administering drugs to the children. Gloria, the housekeeper's charge, resonated throughout the refined corridor of the Whitmore estate like a thunderclap. Mr. James, it's impossible for two children who stayed awake throughout the night to suddenly rest like cherubs. She's engaging in illegal activities with those infants. At 28 years old, Keisha Williams remained perfectly still in the marble hallway center, observing the 60-year-old housekeeper gesturing wildly before her boss. These charges came as no shock to her. She had actually anticipated this exact scenario 3 weeks prior when she accepted the position caring for the 4-year-old twins who had driven away caregivers for 6 consecutive months. James Whitmore, property tycoon and heartbroken widower, glanced between his longtime housekeeper and the young black nanny who had converted his residence from a place of perpetual chaos into a haven of tranquility. Since his spouse's passing, this marked the first time his daughters Ruby and Rose enjoyed uninterrupted hours of sleep nightly. "Gloria, these are extremely grave charges," he whispered, visibly distressed by the circumstances. "Grave indeed, Mr. James." This individual appeared here from Detroit's periphery without adequate recommendations. Gloria spoke venomously. "Suddenly our children, who previously screamed from nightmares nightly, sleep peacefully. Something is terribly amiss." Kesha inhaled deeply, her gaze momentarily connecting with Jamesy's. Something existed in that exchange, not merely appreciation for the serenity she delivered to the household, but authentic interest regarding her true identity. What would motivate a woman possessing her sophisticated education and remarkable child development expertise to accept employment that caused other nannies to flee in distress? "Should you demand an investigation into my techniques," Kesha stated with composure that momentarily unsettled Gloria, "I recommend installing surveillance equipment in the children's bedroom. This way, everyone can observe precisely what occurs during nighttime hours." The proposal caught everyone off guard. Someone with guilt would never request additional monitoring. James frowned, examining the nanny's peaceful expression. Her demeanor contained something, an unwavering self-assurance that seemed incompatible with a simple child-care provider. During recent days, he'd observed peculiar details. Kesha conversed fluently in 3 languages, referenced child neuroscience research with scholarly accuracy, and possessed a commanding presence that earned respect from even distinguished guests regarding child-related matters. 3 weeks before, when the employment service contacted him offering her assistance, desperation had consumed him. 6 caregivers had resigned within 2 months. Ruby and Rose, devastated by their mother's unexpected automobile accident death, spent nights wailing, weeping, and refusing slumber. The entire household existed in exhausted chaos. Gloria had consistently expressed her views about such people caring for children from respectable families. However, when Kesha arrived that initial afternoon, immediate change occurred. The twins, typically hostile toward unfamiliar faces, approached her with fascination. That first evening brought a miracle, 6 straight hours of sleep. Surveillance cameras. Gloria faltered, clearly unprepared for this response. "Well, I suppose that unnecessary if she would just—" "Actually," Kesha interjected, retrieving her mobile device, "I've already documented some nighttime procedures to track the girls' development. Would you care to view them?" Complete silence followed. James detected a subtle shift in Gloria's demeanor from defiance towards something resembling terror. There in the hallway center, where generations of wealthy families had determined employees' destinies, Kesha stood resolute, protecting secrets too significant for premature revelation. Gloria refused to retreat. Throughout her 15 years serving the Whitmore family, she'd established herself as unquestionably loyal, and she wouldn't permit an opportunist to threaten her privileged household position. "Mr. James, you must comprehend the situation," she persisted, approaching the window overlooking the garden where Ruby and Rose played for the first time in months. "This woman appears from nowhere without proper recommendations from distinguished families, then suddenly possesses magical abilities with children. Please." James observed his daughters running freely across the grass, their laughter echoing for the first time since their mother's funeral. The transformation was undeniable. They ate regularly, slept 8 hours nightly, and had returned to preschool without anxiety episodes. "Gloria, perhaps you're overreacting." "The girls are being controlled," the housekeeper interrupted, her voice rising. You can't see it because you're desperate for solutions. But I recognize a kind. They arrive humbly, create temporary miracles, then begin requesting favors. First salary increases, then expensive family gifts, then account access. Kesha remained motionless, observing Gloria's theatrical display with serene composure that further irritated the housekeeper. This reaction was precisely what she'd expected from the beginning. 3 weeks earlier, stepping off the bus near the Whitmore mansion, Kesha understood exactly what awaited her. Growing up in Detroit as a cleaning woman's daughter who served affluent families, she'd witnessed identical dynamics repeatedly. Established staff defending territory against newcomers, particularly those who didn't match the appropriate image. What Gloria didn't realize was that Kesha Williams held a University of Michigan master's degree in child psychology, had served as pediatric trauma consultant at 3 hospitals, and had chosen this position for specific reasons unrelated to financial gain. You know what disturbs me most? Gloria continued, clearly losing composure. Her calmness. Any normal woman would show nervousness when accused of drugging children, but observe her. She stands there as a possessing knowledge we lack. James pondered this. He had to acknowledge Gloria's observation held merit. Kesha displayed almost unsettling confidence, like someone several steps ahead of everyone else. Actually, Kesha said quietly, I do possess knowledge you lack. Absolute silence followed. Gloria paled slightly, as if having summoned something beyond her preparation. I understand Ruby awakens at 2:30 a.m. because she dreams of falling, just as her mother did when the vehicle overturned. Kesha continued calmly. I know Rose cannot sleep until confirming all doors are secured because subconsciously the house feels unsafe since Mother departed and never returned. James felt chills down his spine. How did she know such specific nightmare details? He'd never disclosed the accident's circumstances or Amanda's discovery. I also know, Kesha continued, now addressing Gloria directly, that you've informed other neighborhood nannies that this family requires someone of matching social status to care for the girls. Very interesting messages in the elite domestic professionals WhatsApp group, correct. Gloria's complexion shifted from pale to crimson instantly. How did you? I never. Oh, but you did. You even suggested I was probably here to deceive the lonely widower. That's a direct quotation from your Thursday messages. James turned slowly toward Gloria, disbelief growing across his features. Is this accurate? The housekeeper stammered, clearly panicking. How did this woman access private messages? Why did she seem to know exactly which pressure points to target? Kesha remained calm, but her eyes flashed with something Gloria finally recognized as danger. Here stood a woman who not only knew secrets but had arrived prepared for this precise confrontation. The truth, Mr. Whitmore, is that I accepted this position because your family requires much more than just a nanny. And Gloria, she smiled gently, has been actively preventing genuine progress in this household far longer than you realize. For the first time since knowing the housekeeper, James witnessed authentic fear in her eyes. For the first time since hiring Kesha, he began suspecting this quiet woman possessed much more depth than appearances suggested. Every accusation Gloria made seemed to strengthen something within Kesha, a silent power that grew proportionally to the injustice being attempted against her, as if each contemptuous act fueled a plan far greater than anyone present could imagine. Do you wish to learn the truth about this household situation? Kesha asked, maintaining that calm tone beginning to unsettle even James. Then let's begin at the very start. She approached the side table and retrieved a leather portfolio James had never seen. Gloria, are you certain you want to continue these accusations? Because once I open this folder, there's no reversal. The housekeeper's panic was now almost tangible. Mr. James, she's attempting intimidation. This exemplifies the manipulative behavior I mentioned. But James watched, fascinated by the transformation occurring before him. The woman he'd hired as a nanny was revealing complexity layers that completely challenged his expectations. Kesha wasn't merely polite. She was strategic. She wasn't just competent. She was formidable. 3 weeks ago when I accepted this position, Kesha continued, opening the folder. It wasn't from desperate employment need. It was because I received a very interesting call from someone you know well. She produced an audio recording from her phone. Dr. Patricia Coleman, the pediatrician treating Ruby and Rose for 2 years. She contacted me after Gloria called questioning my professional competence before I even began working here. James felt spine chills. Gloria, you contacted the girl's pediatric, Ian. I just wanted to verify if she knew this person, Gloria stammered, realizing she'd fallen into an unknown trap. Kesha pressed play. Dr. Coleman's clear voice filled the room. Gloria, I must tell you something. Kesha Williams isn't just an ordinary nanny. She holds a child psychology master's degree and specializes in pediatric trauma. When I learned she'd accepted the Whitmore twins case, I was intrigued. A professional of a caliber doesn't accept domestic work from necessity. The following silence was broken only by muffled sounds of children playing in the garden. James looked at Kesha as if seeing her for the first time. You have a master's degree. University of Michigan. I worked at Detroit Children's Hospital for 5 years before opening my own child trauma clinic. Kesha smiled softly. The question, Mr. Whitmore, is why would a trauma-specializing psychologist close a successful clinic to work as a nanny? Gloria was visibly panicking now. That makes no sense. If you're so qualified, why? Why did I take a job paying 1/10 of my previous earnings? Kesha completed the question. Because it wasn't about money, Gloria. It was about justice. She pulled document series from her briefcase. 6 months ago, James, you terminated an employee from your company for cultural incompatibility. Do you remember Marcus Johnson, the black engineer who designed your latest residential complex? James frowned, clearly uncomfortable. Marcus, yes, there were some issues. The issues were that Gloria suggested to your human resources manager that employees like him might not fit the Whitmore image. Kesha placed a document on the table. Email dated March 3rd, copied to 5 board members. Gloria turned pale. How do you have access to internal company emails? Because Marcus Johnson is my younger brother. The revelation struck the room like a bomb. And when he told me about the systematic discrimination he suffered here, I decided to personally investigate the family environment that created this kind of professional mentality. James sat heavily in an armchair, processing the information. His housekeeper, whom he'd trusted for 15 years, had actively interfered in business decisions based on racial prejudice. The woman transforming his daughter's lives was the sister of the man he'd unfairly fired. Marcus lost his job 2 days before his 3rd child's birth. Kesha continued, her voice taking controlled intensity. He spent 4 months unemployed, nearly lost his home, and his wife suffered postpartum depression without proper treatment because they lacked health insurance. I didn't know, James murmured, genuinely shocked. Of course you didn't. Gloria ensured you never discovered it. Kesha turned to the housekeeper. Because people like you operate in shadows, whispering poison in decision-makers' ears, planting doubt seeds about people you consider unsuitable. Gloria attempted one final desperate card. Mr. James, she's here to harm us. It's a trap. She planned everything. You're correct, Gloria. I planned it all, Kesha smiled. But something dangerous lurked in that smile. But not to harm anyone. I planned to expose the truth about how prejudice operates in families like this, how it seeps into everything from household decisions to corporate ones. She picked up a phone and showed him message series. All our conversations over the past 21 days have been recorded with legal consent. I informed you on my first day that I would document my work for professional purposes. Every racial comment, every sabotage attempt, every time you tried interfering in my relationship with the children. James watched Gloria break down before his eyes. The woman he'd respected as his home's pillar had been systematically exposed as someone operating from deep and dangerous prejudices. The twins are sleeping because they finally have someone who understands childhood trauma caring for them, Kesha said. Not because they are being medicated, but because they are being treated by a qualified professional who recognizes unprocessed grief signs in young children. She closed the folder and looked directly at James. The question now is, what will you do with this information? Will you continue allowing people like Gloria to influence your decisions about employees and about your own daughters? At that moment, Ruby and Rose burst through the door, their cheeks flushed from playing. Daddy, Kesha, we found a bird's nest in the oak tree. The children's radiant innocence contrasted sharply with the heavy tension in the air. Kesha knelt to greet them, and James watched as his daughters clung to her with confidence that had taken months to develop with any adult after their mother's death. For a moment, as he watched the scene, his daughters finally happy, the housekeeper he trusted exposed his prejudice, and the woman who'd saved his family revealing herself as someone seeking justice for her own brother. James realized he was at the center of a lesson about how privilege and power can be used both to perpetuate injustice and to correct it. But what neither James nor Gloria knew yet was that Kesha had documented much more than conversations and messages. She had uncovered connections between Gloria's domestic discrimination and Whitmore's corporate practices that went far beyond her brother's case, connections that once revealed would not only destroy a career, but potentially rewrite how the entire business elite of the city thought about social responsibility and the consequences of their prejudices. The twins' entrance momentarily broke the tension, but Kesha knew this was exactly the moment she'd been awaiting for weeks. "Ruby, Rose, how about showing Daddy and Gloria the drawing you made yesterday about our nighttime routine?" The girls ran excitedly to fetch their drawings, leaving the three adults in heavy silence. Gloria saw the moment to try one last desperate attack. "Mr. James, she's even manipulating the children. This is proof that—" "Gloria," Kesha interrupted softly, picking up her tablet. "Are you certain you want to continue? Because we still have 15 minutes of footage from Ruby's birthday party last month when you told Mrs. Henderson that people like me shouldn't have access to children from traditional families." Gloria's face turned from red to deathly white. The birthday party had been an important social event with at least 20 elite families in attendance. If those recordings became public. "I also have your messages to the premium executive Nanny's WhatsApp group," Kesha continued, swiping through the screen, "where you shared photos of me without permission, speculating about my true intentions with the family." James stepped closer, taking the tablet from Kesha's hands. His features hardened as he read the messages. "Gloria, you shared photos of my daughter's nanny with strangers, discussing our private life." "Mr. James, I was just being cautious." "Cautious?" Jamesy's voice rose an octave. "You violated my family's privacy, spread personal information, and even had the audacity to interfere in my business decisions based on racial prejudice." Kesha watched the dynamic with controlled satisfaction. She had planned each revelation carefully, knowing that Jamesy's pride as a father and businessman would be the most powerful weapon against Gloria's toxic influence. "But there's more," she said, opening another folder on her tablet. "Gloria, do you remember recommending the dismissal of 3 black employees from Whitmore in the last 2 years? Always with seemingly technical justifications." The silence was absolute. James looked at his housekeeper as if seeing her for the first time. Jennifer Watson, financial analyst, fired after Gloria suggested that people like her might not fit the company's conservative corporate culture. David Miller, architect, transferred to the least prestigious department after Gloria commented on his suitability for the clientele profile. And my brother Marcus, of course. "How do you have access to this inside information?" James asked, genuinely confused. "Because after Marcus was fired, I began systematically investigating the firing patterns at your company. I discovered that Gloria was in regular contact with 5 people in your human resources department, always offering insights about employees based on observations she made during social events and family gatherings." Kesha showed him a detailed spreadsheet. Over the past 3 years, 16 black or Latino employees have been fired or demoted from Whitmore Industries. In 60% of the cases, there was an email or phone call from Gloria in the files, always suggesting cultural concerns or questions about fit for the environment. James sat down heavily, running his hands through his hair. "My God, Gloria, is this true?" The housekeeper finally broke down. I just wanted to protect the family's reputation. People like her don't understand our values, our tradition, our values." James exploded. "What values are those?" "Discrimination, prejudice, destroying the lives of competent people based on the color of their skin." At that moment, Ruby and Rose came running back with their drawings. "Look, it's Kesha reading us a story," exclaimed Rose, showing a colorful drawing of a black woman sitting between 2 children, all smiling. "And here she is teaching us about the stars," added Ruby, showing another drawing where Kesha pointed to a starry sky while the girls looked up in wonder. The innocence of the drawings contrasted brutally with the poisonous reality that had been exposed in the room. James looked at his daughters, finally happy, finally sleeping well, finally confident, and realized the magnitude of the injustice he had allowed to flourish under his own roof. "Gloria," he said, his voice now controlled but relentless, You're fired. I want you out of this house today. Mr. James, please. 15 years of service. 15 years influencing my decisions with prejudice, he corrected. 15 years sabotaging competent employees. 15 years poisoning the environment of my home and my company. Kesha picked up one last folder from her materials. James, there's one more thing you need to know. Gloria didn't just influence firings. She also blocked hires. She showed him a series of resumes. 23 highly qualified candidates were rejected in the last 2 years after Gloria did informal checks on their families and backgrounds. Among them were 2 engineers with degrees from MIT, an award-winning architect, and an analyst with an MBA from Harvard. All black or Latino, James noted, scanning the resumes. Professionals who could have contributed significantly to the company. Exactly. Meanwhile, less qualified candidates who fit Gloria's right profile were hired at higher salaries and in better positions. Gloria made one last desperate attempt. Mr. James, she set this all up. It's a conspiracy against me. Conspiracy. Kesha laughed softly. Gloria, it would be a conspiracy if I had invented your words, forged your emails, created your WhatsApp messages. All I did was document and organize your own actions. James turned to his daughters, who were watching the tension between the adults with confusion. Girls, how about we go out to the garden while the adults finish talking? When the children left, he faced Gloria one last time. You have 1 hour to pack your bags. I don't want to see you on this property again. What about the company? Kesha asked. James took a deep breath. Tomorrow morning, I'll conduct a complete audit of the hiring and firing processes for the last 3 years. All affected employees will be contacted with offers of reinstatement or compensation. Gloria stumbled out of the room, completely defeated. 15 years of influence and power had crumbled in less than an hour in the face of her own evidence of discriminatory conduct. Kesha watched the housekeeper leave, feeling a deep but controlled satisfaction. It wasn't cruelty. It was pure justice served with surgical precision. Why? James asked when they were alone. Why go to all this trouble? Come here, take care of my daughters, face all this prejudice just to expose Gloria. Because injustice unchallenged is injustice perpetuated, Kesha replied simply, and because Ruby and Rose deserve to grow up in an environment where competence matters more than skin color. But there was one last revelation that neither James nor Gloria knew yet, a discovery Kesha had made about the true connections between Gloria's domestic discrimination and a much larger network of systematic exclusion that extended throughout the city's business elite, and that was about to transform not just one family but an entire corporate culture based on unquestioned privilege. 6 months later, the transformation in the Whitmore twins' lives was only a small part of a much larger revolution that Kesha had quietly orchestrated. Marcus Johnson sat in his new office at Whitmore Industries, now as Director of Sustainable Development, a position created especially to leverage his expertise in inclusive housing projects. The salary was 40% higher than his previous one, and he had received a stake in the company as compensation for his months of unemployment. I still can't believe my sister did all this, he told James during one of their weekly meetings, which now included discussions about corporate diversity. She planned every move for months. James smiled, looking out the window at the new community garden the company had created on the vacant lot next door, a project led by 3 of the employees who had been reinstated after the audit. Your sister didn't just save my daughters. She saved my company from becoming obsolete in a world that no longer tolerates systematic discrimination. The full audit had revealed an even more extensive pattern than James had imagined. 23 employees were reinstated or compensated appropriately. 5 supervisors who had actively participated in the discriminatory practices were fired. The company implemented a new blind hiring protocol where resumes were evaluated without photos or names that could reveal ethnic origin. Gloria, for her part, discovered that 15 years of influence based on prejudice did not build a solid professional network. None of the elite families rehired her after Kesha's recording circulated discreetly in the Nanny's WhatsApp groups. She was now working at a chain hotel, earning less than half of what she had earned at the Whitmore mansion. The most impressive thing, James continued, is that she never wanted to destroy anyone. She wanted to transform the system. Kesha had declined James's offer to become a permanent consultant for the company. Instead, She used a documented experience to start a consulting firm specializing in identifying and correcting institutional bias. Her first client was a Detroit hospital network facing lawsuits over racial discrimination in patient care. Ruby and Rose, now 5, attended a more diverse school that James had chosen specifically to broaden their world. Kesha still visited them twice a week, no longer as a nanny, but as Aunt Kesha, the woman who had turned nightmares into peaceful dreams and taught them that families are built on love, not prejudice. "Daddy, is Aunt Kesha coming to my birthday?" Rose asked over breakfast, wearing the star necklace she never took off. "Of course, Princess. And your Uncle Marcus, too," James replied, still surprised at how natural it felt to call Kesha's brother family. The true measure of Kesha's success was not in the impressive numbers of a consulting firm or the 23 employees she had helped get rehired at Whitmore Industries. It was in the call she received the week before from a young black mother in Chicago who had seen her interview on a social justice podcast. "My 6-year-old son is being discriminated against at school," the woman said. "The teachers say he's troubled, but I know he's smart. Can you help me document what's going on?" Kesha smiled, picking up a new notebook. "Let's start at the beginning. Tell me everything you've noticed." Because the best revenge isn't destroying those who hate you. It's building bridges where there were walls, creating opportunities where there was exclusion, and turning pain into purpose. James Whitmore learned that privilege without awareness is a dangerous weapon, but privilege with purpose can rewrite entire histories. Gloria tried to use prejudice as power, but discovered that hatred always builds sandcastles. Kesha used intelligence as justice and built a legacy that will last for generations. If this story of transformation through courage has touched your heart, subscribe to the channel because sometimes changing the world starts with one person brave enough to document the truth and strategic enough to use it with surgical precision.